Good evening, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight, to not see any of you because of the lights, but anyway, I know you're here. I have very good memories of the Wise Hall. My darling wife, who I can't see, Susan, is here somewhere, and we had one of our first dates here, and we are now married with children, so if you are prowling tonight, I wish you lots of luck. So I want to take a few minutes to talk about roots and shoots, where we came from, why we exist, and the meaning of the universe. Oops, wrong talk. Let's start with roots. Sustainable community development, you know, as an academic focus because we're a university center, but it's also a social movement. And while at SFU we're obviously concerned with teaching and research, I want to say a few words about our connection to this broader social movement that's been gathering steam since before the center was founded. It all started with a book published in 1973, a book widely considered to be one of the 100 most influential books of the last century. The author of this book was a respected economist who for 20 years was the chief economic advisor to the National Coal Board of the UK. Despite that conventional sounding background, because of this book, he became a hero to many in the environmental movement. If you haven't guessed yet, the author I'm talking about was E.F. Schumacher, and the book was a collection of his essays called Small is Beautiful, subtitled A Study of Economics as If People Mattered. Schumacher argued that the modern economy is unsustainable. Natural resources, like fossil fuels, are treated as expendable income, when in fact they should be treated as capital, since they are not renewable and thus subject to eventual depletion. He further argued that nature's resistance to pollution is limited, and he concluded that government effort must be concentrated on sustainable development. Now remember, this is 1973. He said sustainable development because minor tweaking will not solve the underlying problems of an unsustainable economy. Schumacher's philosophy was one of enoughness. He emphasized that the aim ought to be to obtain the maximum amount of well-being with the minimum amount of consumption. And obviously, 40 years later, these ideas still resonate. In 1981, Schumacher's friend and colleague, George McRobie, penned a sequel called Small as Possible. The subtitle of McRobie's book was A Factual Account About Who is Doing What, Where, to put into practice the ideas expressed in E.F. Schumacher's Small is Beautiful. McRobie went on to become chair of the Intermediate Technology Development Group and later the New Economics Foundation in the UK. Meanwhile, here in Canada, another influential book was preparing the soil for what would become the center. In 1986, social economist David Ross, with his colleague Peter Usher, published a book called From the Roots Up, Economic Development as If Community Mattered. You'll start to hear a theme here. They argued that narrow bottom-line thinking should be replaced with whole systems economic and social accounting, that conventional solutions such as free trade and mega projects are leading us in the wrong direction, and that instead we should expand the role of cooperative enterprises, small businesses, community development corporations, voluntary activity, and mutual aid to yield more informal, appropriate, and democratic solutions. Fast forward, Burnaby Mountain, 1987. A committee of SFU faculty get together to discuss this notion of community economic development as a focus at SFU. They include some or all of the following, many of whom are still around: Steve Duguid, Jerry Zaslov, Bob Anderson, who's here in this room, Evan Alderson, John Pierce, Marjorie Cohen, Jock Monroe, Allison Gill. They find support from somewhere, perhaps Jennifer Simons, to conduct a feasibility study for a community economic development center at SFU. Who do they hire to do the study? George McRobie and David Ross. What does the study conclude? Do it! And thus the center opened its doors in 1989, 25 years ago. Now, for some of the shoots. No one seems to really know or remember what happened right away, but by 1992, the center's first postbaccalaureate diploma courses were offered downtown in the evening, aimed at mid-career professionals. Distance versions of these courses were added shortly afterwards. In those days, these were essentially glorified correspondence courses, not the cool, high-tech online distance courses that we offer now. But for students living outside of Metro Vancouver, outside of BC, and outside Canada, these distance courses were a godsend and enabled them to build their own capacity and their community's capacity without uprooting themselves to move to the big city. In 1999, we added our undergraduate certificate to the program so students could be exposed to CED, or Community Economic Development, during their formative undergrad years. In 2000 or so, we started our CED professional program, along with a similar program we developed in Spanish in Mexico with an NGO and a university partner there. In 2003-04, we offered our professional program in Western Ukraine to a group of community leaders and university professors, with the condition that the professors offer a Ukrainian version of the course in their own institutions the following year. And I think you're seeing some of the results of that initiative in the news now. Including environmental, economic, and social objectives in development always made sense to us from the get-go. So in 2004, we asked the SFU Senate to officially change our name from Community Economic Development to Sustainable Community Development to reflect that. Now in 2014, that seems like a no-brainer, but in 2004, that was a bold and risky move. We were the first unit at SFU to have the word sustainable in our name, and one of the first units in the world to use the term sustainable community development. In 2005-06, we started a multi-year project to create a professional program in Bolivia, and in 2007, we created another Vancouver-based professional program in sustainable community development, and you'll hear more about these fabulous programs later tonight. Besides our teaching, we have an impressive research record. We have published influential articles and books, presented at numerous conferences, and have led or been involved in major national and international collaborative research initiatives on the social economy, sustainability transition, eco-city frameworks, participatory budgeting, rural revitalization, and so on. We work closely with ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, including organizing their 2012 World Congress Researchers Symposium in Brazil, associated with the Rio+20 Earth Summit. At that Congress, we launched the Center's Community Capital Tool, our online network, pando.sc, and the 4th edition of my book, Towards Sustainable Communities. Recently, we became one of only 2 or 3 Canadian organizations to be approved for membership by the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, a global problem-solving network that emerged from the UN Rio+20 conference in 2012. Our Vancouver-based sister organization, Sustainable Cities International, sadly closed its doors this spring after 20 years of good works, which shows you how hard it is to keep this work going sometimes. But I'm pleased to announce that we are welcoming their core staff as new associates of the center. CEO Jane McRae is overseas this evening, but Bertine, if you were here, Bertine Sticer, Carolina Saf, and Edna Aguinaga, if you are here, please wave your arms. We want to welcome you very much to the center. I also want to acknowledge the staff who have provided the advising and administrative support that have kept the center going all these years. Penny Simpson in the very early days, later Christina Lai, and currently our fantastic team from the Faculty of Environment Dean's Office, including Stevie Benish and Lee McGregor, who are here in the back. So thank you both. Sandy Gertler and Michelle Black as well. We have come a long way in 25 years, and you will see the evidence here this evening. The people who we attract as instructors, associates, colleagues, and students are changing the world for the better every day. Our greatest accomplishment is that we are helping to nurture a new generation of current and future sustainable community leaders and entrepreneurs, many of whom are here tonight. Our future is as promising as the passion, energy, and creativity in this room. E.F. Schumacher would be proud.